Welcome to episode Welcome to episode 43 of PuckPod by BE Sports. Zoom, that was a weird update. I don't know if you guys heard that, but it kind of threw me off a little bit, but it's okay. This is season 2, I guess. We're just going to keep the naming in regards to the episodes numerically, just make it easy for Dave. Boys, how was your summer? How was your week?
When was the last time we talked? It must have been like a month, right? It's
Was
been
it
Matthews
Matthews extension?
Yeah, so that was probably what
face to face. We message all the time.
Yeah. I mean, the rest of my summer's been all right. You know, I've definitely keeping myself occupied sports wise. The emotional roller coaster that is the Toronto Blue Jays, dear God. But we're at a high on the roller coaster right now because they lose 4 in a row. They're on a 2-game win streak. We'll see what happens. But Jays drive me crazy. Brian knows should be pretty happy today with Formula One results. Ferrari finally pulled out a win, ruining Red Bull's 11 race streak there, or Verstappen's 10 win streak. Other than that, guys, I've been raring up, ready to go for this. I've been waiting for hockey. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to get sports back. I think I had the record for the most amount of sports team losses in the past week. The Bills lost in overtime.
Jays,
the Jays
got
swept. Yeah, they got swept. It was like genuinely embarrassing. I was at one of the games.
Me too.
There was boos ringing out in the 5th inning. Man United. Milan got slapped up as well by the rivals. Who else? There's another team that I'm thinking of, or maybe I'm wrong.
The Leafs lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets
that's
prospect tournament in Traverse City. No, definitely.
On all of them, that's number 5 right now, just because it's the prospects. But give it a month.
Yeah, it's okay because you had the best weekend of your life.
Oh yeah, it was a pretty good time.
We won't get into it if it comes up later in the future, maybe. But Dave, that's an all timer.
It is an all timer. Hopefully in the future, we could tell that story, but right now I think we should leave that one just unturned. Yes. We'll turn that stone over in the future.
These guys, they had a pretty boring, I want to say summer, I guess. The past month of mine has been the busiest month of my life.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Bright, you're in a new setup. Did you move to a different part of your house, or?
Yeah, I moved to the living room, got a new light. No, I'm kidding. I moved out of my parents' home. I moved away for law school. I'm currently a law student. All I'm gonna say is, don't study law if you don't want to be a lawyer. If you don't know 100% you want to be a lawyer, don't study law. It's not worth it.
What about if you know 100%? Are you still telling people to not study law? Or?
Just change your mind. Just don't do it. Choose a different life.
I'm 17 days into this, and I feel like I've lost a bit of my soul, but it's okay.
It's all right. By the end, you'll lose your whole soul, and you won't even feel regret anymore. You won't know what guilt feels like, Brian. So don't worry.
I'm pretty sure
that's how lawyers in society are.
Yeah, I was just about to say. I'm pretty sure all lawyers in society don't have souls. So I mean, once you do that, I think you've hit the peak.
The transformation's underway, Brian.
It's not even the school that's the hardest thing. It's the moving out. I have to make a list of things that I needed to buy. I didn't have
you're living a whole new life.
Spoon.
You're living on your own.
Yeah.
A wooden spoon. Oh my God.
I didn't have a wooden spoon. I didn't have a broom until last week. So one of the 2 L's was you can borrow mine if you want. The second year law student, it's oh my God. I actually don't have anything here.
They probably see you coming in and are like, wow, this guy, I remember being in this guy's shoes. You got to help him out. So thank God you have people like that.
Yes. Shout out to the 2L who let me borrow her broom. Also, what I was gonna say. Okay, whatever.
Trying to get one of your patented segues.
No, but the segue I had was I was gonna say, remember the list? I know somebody else who made a list, I believe, but whatever. It was actually
about
my
life. That's a really
good
segue, dude.
We'll just go into the list segue. Yeah. So there's also a guy that made a list for the Leafs a couple years ago, or made a player make a list. His name is Mike Babcock. He had some drama in his 3rd week of.
No, he got hired in April.
I think it was. He got hired. Yeah, it was July 1st that he could officially be signed because he was still getting paid by the Leafs up until that point, right?
Yeah.
Lots of drama there. Do you want to run it down, Brian, or you want me to give it the rundown?
Yeah, I think you should give
Oh,
it the rundown, Christian.
let's give it the rundown. Brian's Brian's got a little bit of technical difficulties, but we'll take over here. So yeah, Babs, the latest in Babs land in Columbus now instead of Toronto, is a little bit of controversy that was brought up on the Spitting Chicklets podcast, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Paul Bissonnette, Whitney, those guys, one of the biggest hockey podcasts out there. And Biz basically brought up that he had heard from a player that, oh, did you hear what Babs is doing now? The newest stuff from Babs and his tactics. And, leaving the expletives out of it, Bissonnette basically ran down the story. And the story is that Babcock asks players for their phones and the pictures on their phones to see their family. Now, that was Biz's perspective on it from what he had heard. Afterwards, we got a statement from the Columbus Blue Jackets, a joint statement from Babcock and Boone Jenner, captain of the Blue Jackets, basically saying that's a bit of an exaggeration. And in Babcock's words, it's actually a little bit offensive. And their side of it was, listen, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like handing over your phone and I'm going to airplay all your photos on the TV. It was more casual conversation, one-on-one in Babcock's office. Hey, Boone Jenner, how was your summer? Can I see your family? I've got a family myself. Let's bond over this. Oh, you've got kids? That's awesome. Here's my kids. This is Michael Babcock's kids, right? That's how it was presented from the joint statement. And then from there, Biz Nasty went back on Twitter and was like, listen, I don't care what you say, Babcock. We're a players podcast. We got the players versions and it's not matching up. A whole lot of hoopla, NHLPA investigation with the new head of the NHLPA, Marty Walsh, and his second in command, Ron Hainsey. They're investigating that in Columbus. And that's kind of where we are. We're in limbo. We've got insiders saying something could come out of this, something might not come out of this. And yeah, we're in limbo here. Dave, what's your take on all this?
I'll be honest. Is this the most so let's I think it would be remiss to also not run down the history of Mike Babcock. So the whole reason why this story has been getting so much attention, if this was any other coach, if this was, let's say, Sheldon Keefe, hypothetically, as much as the Leafs are the center of the universe about everything, this might not be getting as much play than because it's Mike Babcock, right? For those who aren't aware, his Mike Babcock's time in Toronto ended prematurely. He signed a 6-year contract with the team. He was cut after, I believe it was 4 years. So that's why the Leafs are still paying. Why Columbus couldn't even sign him until after July 1st, like Christian mentioned earlier. And shortly after he was canned by the Leafs, there was a report that came out that in the first year with the 3 big rookies, Matthews,
it came out right after he was fired, though, right? Like we heard about it retroactively.
So we didn't hear it the season or whatever, like whenever this incident took place, they handled the incident behind closed doors, but it was the rookie year for Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, and Mike went up to a then rookie Mitch Marner, who and the way that they also made it sound was like it was near the beginning of the season as well. So it's not even like a full season under his. It's like barely even half a season at this point. And there was a stretch there where Mitch was playing on the 4th line. I forget what the exact reasons were, but there was some I don't know if it was like butting heads with the coach. I forget exactly what it was, but there was some tension at the time, and Mitch was called into Mike's office, and he was asked to make a list of all the guys on the team and how hard their work ethic was. And he was like, Mike said to Mitch, like, listen, this is going to be between me and you. Like, this is your opinion. Nobody's going to see it. So Mitch makes a list, hands it back, and what does Mike do almost immediately after receiving the list? he goes and tells everybody. And he made a point to go and tell the people who were near the bottom of the list, who happened to be, I believe the report was Nazem Kadri and Tyler Bozak, two guys who at that time were, seasoned veterans on that Leafs team. And by all accounts, the guys in that locker room all, kind of took Mitch's side, because Mitch was distraught over it. He was like, what the hell, Mike? Like, I thought you said to me this was going to be between me and you. It wasn't gonna, I was going to get outed like that, basically, right? So at the end of the day, it just, like, stories like that, if that's the one story that we heard, there are countless others, supposedly. Like, it's kind of been known for a while that Mike is he's a power monger, I guess we could call him. He has to be the center of attention in a locker room, right? So if that's like the story that we know, I could only imagine the stuff we don't know. In terms of this situation on its own, it doesn't seem to be.
Is the Medano one, the 1,499, like scratching him what 41 games of the season. All you have to do is play, I think it was like 42 games.
42,
just a bit over half, and literally one game over half, and it would be at 1,500 games. But that obviously didn't happen.
And because he left it to like the end of the season as well. There was like supposedly there was I like, you got to go back and look, but there was like the last 5 games he needed to play in all 5, but one of them or 2 of the games happened to be on a back-to-back, and he scratched him for the second half of the back-to-back, which in most other circumstances, fair enough. That was a 40-year-old Mike Modano, right? Like, that makes the most sense.
But you just do it, just the courtesy of your heart.
Yeah.
Yes, but also with the type of person that Mike Babcock has, another story that I guess we could also bring up with courtesy in your heart, the Leafs signed, Southern Ontario legend, Ottawa Senators legend, Jason Spezza to a short-term deal a few years ago. And on opening night, Jason told his family to come down. He had, I believe it was like 10 plus people in attendance that he bought tickets for to come out and watch the home opener with him in the lineup
against Ottawa,
all to find out, like, just before the game, that he was going to be healthy scratched in favor of Nick Shore. It was just like,
no,
like,
yeah.
Like, okay, if it's for another player, not Nick Shore, like, I don't think Nick Shore's in the league anymore. Maybe,
just signed a PTO actually with the Hurricanes.
Did he actually? Good for him. Just for being in the league.
Yeah.
Good for him.
But it's no, he's like, it didn't make any sense at the time, and it was proven by the rest of the season. Like, Babcock was still the coach, and Spezza was getting the time that he deserved. Right, he became a regular. He was
good for you guys.
I remember in the preseason, like, there was quotes about Babcock saying, like, we'll see about Spezza penalty killing, because Dubas was saying that was part of the plan, and then Babcock was skeptical of it. So he's always made some decisions that were like, okay, that doesn't really have much logic to it. And like you said, it's more based in power and authority and ego than anything else. And like you were alluding to before, though, this incident in isolation, in a vacuum, doesn't appear to be on the same level of these other ones that we brought up. But it's the context of what's happened in the past that makes us raise an eyebrow. Brian, did you have anything you wanted to say about this specific situation?
Sorry, I cut out, but Wi-Fi issues.
We're good. We got you. We got you.
Honestly, I feel like it's just weird. Like, if my boss said to me, like, airdrop photos and show the rest of the analyst team, or
like going on a Zoom like this,
no,
and just like sharing your screen and putting up photos. Now, I think so. Here's my. I always live by this statement of there's three sides to every story. There's there's the side telling the story, the other side who tells the story, and the truth, right? So I think the truth here lies somewhere in the middle. I don't think this whatever was done was meant to be malicious. I don't
agree
like that.
But it came up as weird, and that's the problem.
It does. And somebody in that Columbus locker room has a problem with it. And they probably don't feel like they could come forward to Mike and say, listen, Mike, I'm not too comfortable with this. Now I wouldn't want to point names, but I would assume it wouldn't be somebody with tenure on that team. It would, I would hedge a bet saying it's probably somebody who's on the fringes of the team, somebody who's a bit younger.
The report is and I shouldn't say the report, but listening to like Friedman, I know Drager was reporting stuff as well, but I know specifically from Friedman, he was saying that it does sound like it is what you're saying is the case. The veterans likely heard from Boone Jenner, and I think we got quotes from Goudreau as well, just by the fact that he was at he's in the NHL media tour in Vegas right now. So he kind of got caught up in the storm where he had to answer questions about this. He didn't seem too bothered by it, but it does sound like from Friedman, the people that might have had a problem with it, might be a singular person, might be multiple, are on the younger side in terms of the players. It is someone younger. And just think about it, like Brian already said, from our perspective, if our boss came up to us and asked us that, it's a little weird. But Babcock asking Boone Jenner, someone who's, I don't know if he's married, but let's assume you're asking a player who's married, who has kids, who takes these family photos, it doesn't appear as weird, especially to Babcock, who talks about family all the time, right? But a 19-year-old kid probably doesn't have all these incredible pictures of him with his parents and whatever, right? And it's like, okay, dude, what are you asking me here? So that's the disconnect. And like Dave said, it maybe wasn't predatory in nature, but because of what a player might have heard about Babcock as a younger player, you're gonna be like, dude, what the hell? That's kind of weird. What are you asking me?
So it kind of feels to me like Mike's leash has been shortened. It's been cut. If he had a 10-foot leash in Toronto, now it's cut down to a couple of feet.
1 foot, man. It's one tug too tight and he's off. Like you're gone.
Pretty much, right?
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna last too long, if I'm being honest with you guys. And I think that we're all in the same consensus of that. But
see, I don't know. I think he plays out I think he plays out his whole contract.
I feel like if he was going to be reprimanded, I feel like we would have known it by now. There's reports that something was going to come out by Friday, and the fact that it hasn't, I don't know. I'm leaning more towards the investigation. Like I said, we don't have all the facts, but this investigation, we do have to see what happens here, but we'll see. It's an unfinished story. Like Dave said, there's the 3 stories. We don't have that third story yet. We don't have the truth yet. We're waiting for that to come out. So we'll see what happens.
And here's the thing. I don't know if we'll ever get the truth.
Maybe not.
You're right.
I think the fact that we even got the truth or the story from the Marner incident, I think that alone is like that was a that was a crazy story to even get at that time.
It should be noted though. Like that story, I remember when it came out and who brought it up first. Like it wasn't from the horse's mouth. It wasn't from someone in the Babcock camp or even the Marner camp. It was someone in the media, and it then came out that several people in the media, reporters and those types, had known about this story, right? So there could be other situations like this too, where they hold back on this information because it's a similar thing. Like the power dynamics is kind of the key term here. If you're a reporter and you know about this story, you don't want to maybe let it out because then you might not get a quote. You might get blackballed. Like, it's a complicated thing.
Career.
100%. It's a situation thing with the players and with the media, and it's complicated. It's very complicated.
Okay, let's move on to that's a lot of Babcock. Let's move on to our next thing, which is the 90-50-10 predictions. So how it works is, well, you guys probably know, it's like 90% chance of something occurring this season, 50%, and then your 10 is like your wild card. I'll go first with my 90 because my connection's working right now. My 90% is I think Jack Hughes will hit 105 points plus this season.
Is that his stat line? Is that the over under on all the sites right now? Or
I have no idea. I just
yeah,
picked a random number. I
Dude,
did this like 5 minutes
yeah.
ago in the morning.
I'm pretty sure there was a quote. I want to say it was yesterday that came out, and he was like, I think it was him who said, I want to be, or like I will be a 100-point player. Like he's determined to hit that mark. And
He
somebody
finished with 99 last year, right?
exactly.
And
Or
you
We're
was it
following that
99
at
or
the end of the
98?
season.
He's
Maybe
only
one of the
getting
two.
better.
Yeah, there was a
And
couple
he's in-
guys who finished at 99.
and he's only getting better, and he's in.
Yeah.
Ooh.
No, 100%.
Lost a little bit of Brian there again, but I feel like we can all end the sentence with Jack Hughes, really good. I will say that 90% for him on 105 is pretty bang on.
I
I'd
think
put
so
probably
too.
the same odds on that. Brian, we got you back here?
Yes. I was
Okay.
gonna say he's only getting better, and he has a shiny new toy in Tyler Toffoli on his right wing. So
And he's
I
got
think
a
it's gonna
shiny
be-
new, well, not new to him, but he's got his brother coming up too. I know he's on defense, but
right.
yeah.
It
yeah.
definitely
The
definitely
vibes are
adds
good
a-
in Jersey.
it definitely adds an extra like step, like, you know, playing with your brother, you know what I mean? Like Henrik and Daniel Sedin for all those years, like you think it didn't motivate them? Like that's the guy that you grew up with, and now you're
Yeah.
feeding him the puck in the NHL, right? So I think playing with your brother is going to be an underrated
Chemistry boost.
chemistry
We're gonna
boost.
see
Yeah.
some nice stretch passes. You're gonna see some breakout passes that are just like
Hey,
holy.
from what we've seen so far from Luke, like he looks like the real deal at what, 19, 20? Like
They're
Yeah.
gonna be lethal
Yeah.
this year, and it's
Yeah.
scary.
it's really good.
All right, Christian, hit us with your 90.
All right, my 90, I kind of had to shoehorn this in here. I feel like this could be a common thing for a lot of people around the league, but I just wanted an opportunity to just talk about Bedard. And so my 90 is Bedard wins the Calder Trophy. I feel like 90% might even be low for this one here. The 10% basically comes in with, does he get
Cooley.
injured? If he's healthy, well, I know, okay, maybe that's your 10%, Brian, but listen, this guy just scored a
This is
hat trick in
10%.
well, listen, Bedard just got a hat trick yesterday at the Traverse City prospect tournament. I don't know who they were playing in Chicago. I haven't seen the highlights yet. I did see one of the goals where it's just a patented, like, just that beautiful toe drag wrister a la Austin Matthews. It's gross. It is really gross. And I also listened to an interview he had this week at the NHL Media Tour with Friedman and Merrick on their podcast there. I was really impressed by just hearing him talk. He's mature but beyond his years. And I really think that he's gonna exceed our expectations, honestly. I don't know if what I'd even peg him in for point wise. Like if you really hit me with he scores 45 goals and 95 points, I wouldn't really be that surprised. I think this guy is legitimately that good. And I'm really excited to see what this guy can do. Even just like for us, we're hardcore hockey fans, but I think the real special quality about Bedard is it feels like everyone across all age groups is really interested in how this guy does. Like little kids go crazy for Bedard. He is that first kind of TikTok, like new age hockey phenom. McDavid kind of missed the boat there, not only by when he came into the league, but also his personality isn't really geared towards that. I think Bedard is someone that a lot of people that can relate to. Not that he's like some Gen Z dude with all this slang or whatever. He's not like that. But I just think he's a genuine dude. And I think that he's going to get a lot of people become fans of him if you aren't already. And yeah, that's my 90%. He's getting the Calder. He's getting the Calder.
He definitely has a touch of personality over Connor, that's for sure.
That's a low bar, but yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of the
That's a solid-
Connor personality battle, he's winning that handedly.
Yeah.
That's a solid 90%, and I'm gonna agree with you on that one.
Yeah. I think so too.
Dave?
Yeah, so
Hit us with your
I'll hit
90.
you guys. Listen, I always go balls to the wall for mine. All three of them, balls to the wall. My 90 is that the Toronto Maple Leafs will be your Atlantic Division champions. So
You had me there.
my reasoning for this I kind of am doing this process of elimination style. So if you look at the rest of the teams in the Atlantic, you know, the teams that missed the playoffs last year, I don't think they did just enough to hit into the upper echelon of the division. You have the cream of the crop of the division last year in Boston, 65 wins, 135 point season, lost in the first, got almost reversed, like, you know, what was it, 3-1? They lost a 3-1 lead. Unfortunately, with that team, they lost a lot in their offseason, didn't do too much. They lost quite like a good chunk of their team and a lot of like leadership and stuff as well, like important pieces. They, for me, I know we say this every year, but I don't see them hitting that first spot. So that let's keep this into consideration. I still think that they'll probably make a playoff push. I don't think they'll finish in that first spot and have another record-breaking season. We also heard not too long ago that the Tampa Bay Lightning were pissed off that they were the ones that lost to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, an angry Tampa Bay Lightning team is scary, but I also don't think the anger is going to be directed in the regular season. I think they know better than anybody that the regular season means nothing, right? Well, not nothing. It means something, but it doesn't mean everything, right? They're going to focus their attention on just getting to the playoffs and then making a push once playoff time comes. And who is the other? Oh, and Florida, the reigning Stanley Cup finalists. I think that might be the only team where we don't know what type of Florida team is going to come out. Like, are they going to get Sergei Bobrovsky putting up Vezina numbers like he did in the playoffs? Who knows, right? If Sergei comes out and he's a $10 million, you know, 898 goaltender, does that put them in that conversation? They also have, I believe, Alex Lyon re-signed there as well. He's a very, very good backup, but is he qualified enough to be the starter? I'm not too sure. There's just so many question marks around the other teams in the division that I think if the Leafs ever wanted to break out of their kind of mid shell and do something, like, I know winning the Atlantic, if you're going to say like, oh, would you rather win the Atlantic division or the Cup? I know my answer 10 times out of 10 is going to be, oh, the Cup, right? But I think there's something into the point of being the elite team in your division at the very least, right?
It's something that we haven't done yet outside of the
Canadian
division season, but that's an asterisk and didn't really help us.
Yeah, it really didn't. But you know, if you're
but didn't you feel really confident going into that series?
I did.
Because it's like we are the best of the division. That you do feel something.
We were on our confidence was at an all-time high when they
were on a high horse for sure.
3-1, right? Like, you're like, wow,
oh my God,
this team. But I let's take playoffs aside. Just winning
regular
division is just like, that has to be something that you strive for. You cannot just strive for, oh, we'll have a second place finish. We'll get the third seed in our division to play in the playoffs, and we'll get home ice advantage over them. Like, no, you should be going for all the major trophies. You should be going for the Atlantic title, for the President's Trophy, and then going for the Stanley Cup. Like, why would you settle for less? So that's why I think the Leafs are probably going to take it.
You get a nice
Dave,
banner.
I like that. Too. Yeah, nice banner. We don't need no divisional banners. We have wasn't it the Jays that put up what was it, that they made the wild card in 2020 against the Rays, and we have a banner for that? That's so terrible.
I don't know why.
The whole take with
I noticed that this past week. I was like, why do we have?
God, man.
Because I thought about it and I was like,
we lost that too. It's not like we won.
No, but why don't we have?
Here's this banner that reminds you how we lost every possible game in the playoffs. I think it was only 2 games.
It's so weird.
The Canadian Division 1 too.
Well, no, we don't. The whole talk there, like going into that playoffs, was okay. If you get to the Final Four, you're allowed to put up that banner because you won the Canadian Division. But that didn't happen. So it was like, no, North Division banner is not going up. Screw that. You're okay, Brian. We
Yeah.
get you. Yeah, we get
Sporadic.
you. Dave, I like your take.
Thank you.
As a Leaf fan, I
Just
definitely agree.
simply
Even
just
when
win them all. Like just win
just
everything.
yeah, like what are these stupid? Just win. Why haven't they
Just win.
tried that? Yeah, Dave, I do agree. Like even trying to put the bias aside, which is definitely hard, but just looking at every other team in the division, I don't really see a team that threatens me. And I know that the Leafs have made questionable moves this offseason too. It's not like everything they've done has been incredible. We even for a long time there going into the offseason, we were like, oh my God, what the hell is this team going to look like? Right? You have a whole regime change. Everything was up in the air. But Tampa has lost that beef of the fourth line. And I know that's not everything, but I do think there's a presence loss there. Their defense isn't as deep as it usually is. Vasilevsky is still kind of a question mark. We didn't see him at his full potential all of last year and even in the playoffs. Their backup is Jonas Johansson, who is every time I've seen that guy, his stats have been god awful. So if that's your backup, I'm not really liking that. It's pretty bad.
Let's also caveat that with they also had a backup for the past like 5 years of Curtis McElhinney was very good for them. Then it was Brian Elliott, and now it's Jonas Johansson. So it's like it's like the who's who of this guy played in the NHL, basically, right?
I feel pretty confident saying that they'll put in a claim for Martin Jones when we throw him down in the on the waiver wire. I can definitely see that.
Well, they're gonna have to fight out like I don't know Arizona and like all those teams at the bottom for Chicago. Yeah. Chicago needs some goaltending right now too. Oh my lord.
The Bruins lost like half their team, man. Sorry, Brian.
The only caveat I have is that you are like counting out the Bruins and Bolts, and like I don't know. I don't think I can make that mistake again.
No, 100%.
Listen, I have the Bruins and I have the Bolts in a playoff spot. In my standings, because I went through it, I'm like, okay, what would I guess the standings are? I have Toronto 1, Tampa 2, Boston 3. So I still have those guys there. I have little faith in Florida. I don't know if this is me just being spiteful because they beat us in the playoffs, but I'm gonna go through their defense core for you right now. This is with the caveat that they've got 2 major injuries on the blue line, Ekblad and Montour. They're gonna miss chunks of the season here to start. They're starting with Forsling and Josh Mahura, Ekman Larson and Dmitry. Yeah, Ekman Larson and Dmitry Kulikov, Nico Mikkola and Matt Kiersted. Does anyone know who the hell Matt Kiersted is?
No idea.
No, and there's
I thought you knew. That's why you were asking.
No, I really don't. That's terrible. It's terrible. Their number one defenseman is Gustav Forsling, who I like as like a number 4, but not as a number 1. No, he might have to be a number 1 for multiple months, and then who knows what the health of Ekblad and Montour are when they come back. I'm not scared of Florida defensively. I like their forwards, but I'm not expecting them to challenge those other 3 teams. I actually don't have them in a playoff spot.
Okay. You know what? We just finished our 90s. We'll just go on a quick break. We'll be right back. That Zoom voice I'll never get used to it. Okay. So starting with my 50. My 50 is there will be an American winning the Rocket this year.
Ooh,
last year, there wasn't an American in the top goal standings until 6, which was Tage. But then after that, it was Tage, Robertson, and Jack Hughes. This year, I think that we'll get an American just because of the fact that the top American goal scorers are all young and they're all getting better and they're all like all their teams upgraded per se. And there's also a caveat with one of them who's underperformed last year, but will be looking to get more, and that's Austin Matthews.
Mm-hmm. I was waiting for that mention. I was like, come on. I know what you're trying to say here, Brian. I know what you're trying to say.
I think
75 goal season for Austin Matthews.
Hopefully.
I think that would be a lock for my 50, but I think Jason Robertson plays on the best team in the league. I think Dallas is by far the strongest team on paper, and Robertson's only getting better. He had 47 goals last season, and especially with playing beside Hintz and Pavelski, that might be the best line in the league. Period. I think they're in for damage this season. Tage Thompson, Christian called it last year, 40+ goals. I'm going to back him on that one, but I'm going to, back it even further by saying he will go for the Rocket. And, Hughes. That's
Yeah.
that's it. Like that's
You could-
that's my
you could
justification
make
for
This
it.
a
guy's
case.
10% is going to be Hughes wins the heart. It's just going to be 90-50-10 Hughes edition for
Yeah.
Brian.
I thought about doing that.
Just all Jack Hughes. You could make the case that the US could potentially have like 40 plus itching at 50 plus goal scorers. You said Matthews. Let's not forget Jason Robertson for a
There was-
long stretch last time. So McDavid ultimately ended up taking over, like, what was it, 65 goals?
Yeah.
64.
That's
Yeah.
so that's one thing. Like, are you gonna count out Connor? It's a tough one, especially for a Connor who's looking to shoot more again. I'm assuming, but also at the same time, like Robertson was keeping pace with McDavid up until, I would say, I think it was like January or February. They were neck and neck for at least 4 months of the season. So who's to say that Robertson, now in his, what is it, 4th year in the league, exceeds all expectations and holds his hot stretch for the entire season? Who's to say that Austin Matthews doesn't come back in with another 60 goal season? Because we know he has it in him. So Brian, honestly, I think that's a really, really good 50% pick. The only downside to that is the other two options there are McDavid and Draisaitl. Like, I know you have Kucherov as well. Like, there's a lot of other guys that I'm not, that we could go down the list of why 15 guys
Pasta,
could win the
Ovi.
Rocket. Yeah, there's
Those are
15
probably
guys
two.
who could win the Rocket. But
Yeah.
I would say there's a real good chance, if out of 15, like 6 of them are from the States. Like, that's pretty good odds right there.
I got no qualms with your 50, Brian. I'll get into my 50 here then. This is a little off the board, I guess. We're gonna go with the first coach fired is Craig Berube. That is my 50
Ooh.
here. I give it 50 because my other coach, who I'd say has a chance to be the first fired, this is assuming the Babcock situation doesn't affect him getting fired. So we're going to say that Babcock starts the year. The other coach that I think has a chance to be fired is DJ Smith, early on at least. So between Berube and DJ Smith, if I'm betting my odds about which team is going to perform better to start the year, I'm taking Ottawa. And so I was with St. Louis as a team that I'm down on. As someone who likes St. Louis more than other teams, I like them in the Central, just in terms of who I'm cheering for. I don't like their team this year. I actually don't. I think they're going to be in for a rude awakening. I know that Dave's been beating the Jordan Binnington sucks drum for a year, and we're definitely, I think we're supporters of that type of music. At least I am. So I don't think that they're going to be in for a good year. I think they're going to tumble down the standings a bit, and I think Berube, a coach who has pedigree, who won the cup with the Blues, is someone who doesn't have the most patience, and it's something that we saw last year with comments directed towards Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, I think multiple times, about work ethic and defensive responsibility. I could see him losing patience and just kind of the room losing the room. It's not to say he's a bad coach. I actually like him a decent bit, but I think that if St. Louis falls down the standings, something's got to give, and it's usually the coach.
I think we could agree that if let's say if it's going to be between Berube and DJ Smith, I think the first person who's going to get a job again is probably going to be Craig Berube. Just aside from the fact that he is a cup winner, with the Blues, I think his respect across the league is still, like, his stock is still at a high. I'll be honest with you, Christian. I think I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate here. I think maybe you're onto something with the DJ Smith one instead. As much as I do think that there's a really good chance for Craig Berube, Ottawa just got new ownership. So the Michael Andlauer now has no ties to anybody who's currently in the organization, like Pierre Dorian, DJ Smith. All those hires came from the previous regime. And he probably wants to start, making good on his investment as soon as possible. He's probably been given he's been sold the dream of this is one of the best up and coming teams who just needs to break through. And, they've never really broken through yet. Are they that one piece away through coaching? Andlauer has no ties to DJ Smith. So I think maybe if Ottawa doesn't have a great start to the season, which in the division that they're in could be possible. Like, who knows?
Sure. Yeah.
So we'll see. But I also I think that's why your pick for the 50% pick is actually a really good, it's a very good pick.
I think it's pretty 50-50. Yeah.
It is pretty
St. Louis, I like the coach. I don't like the roster. Ottawa, I like the roster. I don't like the coach. I am betting on the roster performing and keeping DJ Smith his job more than I'm betting St. Louis and Binnington collapsing and costing Berube his job.
At the end of the day, Craig isn't going to be on the ice. At the end of the day, DJ isn't going to to be on the ice, right?
Yeah,
the team in front of them are the ones that are going out every night and putting their bodies on the line.
Really, it comes down to the goaltending. Like that's what it's Korpisalo and Forsberg versus Binnington, and
I forgot Korpisalo went there too. I thought it was Forsberg as the starter for a second.
And he's coming off double ACL surgery. He tore both his ACLs, right? Yikes. So, but Corpy, I'm betting on Corpy there. Save DJ his job, Corpy.
Yeah,
Dave, hit us with your 50.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just pull it up for a sec. Yes. Okay, so my 50%. Because I completely forgot.
You have to put a decimal in front of all of Dave's predictions. So his 90 is really a 0.9.
It's a 0.5.
0.5.
It's a 0.5. So my 50% is that the Calgary Flames are going to be deadline sellers. I think that team is going to start bottoming out this year. They have do you guys know how many UFAs they have after this year?
I'm going to guess. So I know that they have 4 really good free agents, but I'll guess total that they have 8.
Wow, Christian. Nailed it on the head.
Yeah.
8 UFAs after this year. That includes Noah Hanifin, Chris Tanev, Nikita Zadorov, Oliver Shillington, Elias Lindholm, and Mikhail Backlund. That's 6 key pieces off your team.
They can't sell. They don't have their first this year.
Well, dude, I don't know what the other option is. Sign everyone to these long-term deals that don't make sense, especially guys like Backlund and Tanev. It doesn't make sense.
Lindholm wants 8 years, already at 30, and he wants double digits. Are you gonna make that decision? You know what I mean? Why do you want to sign that long-term deal?
That might be a lottery pick.
This is the thing though, Brian, too. What you're saying is usually more of an ego play by a GM who doesn't want to look like a dumbass. We have not that he's not a dumbass, but in this scenario, we have the guy who traded the pick, right? We have Tree Living. So Conroy's got no
another thing. He has no ties
to save his ass.
Yeah,
exactly. Now, listen, Conroy was in the organization. Maybe he was part of discussions here, but he was not the GM. He's the GM now. I think Connor is the type of guy where he's looking at this as fresh slate. We need to reset the culture in Calgary. And I think that, honestly, Dave, I agree with you here. I think that they're going to end up as sellers because I don't see how you can plan to go into next season with guys who have already verbally told you they're not committed to this team. You can't reset a culture when you have guys like that. There's no culture. Yeah. So,
Dave, I like the take, though.
It's a good one.
Yeah. I also I feel bad for the Flames fans because that's a tough situation to be in. There's a chance that they end up looking like idiots because that first could end up being a Stützle or a Byram or
who has that first again? Is that Montreal? Yeah, from the Monahan deal, right?
Yeah.
Quick aside, I'm gonna confirm this real quick. But guys, what free agents did Calgary sign this year?
They
I
did.
on top of my head.
I was looking at this, and for the life of me, I know Carson Kuhlman is one of them.
Okay, so I'm not even gonna. Let's not even count him. How many guys did they sign that are gonna play on their roster?
How many people did they sign or are gonna play on the roster? Because I think those are two different answers there. Because
fair enough.
if I'm not mistaken, they signed 2 guys, and if that, maybe
I don't think
one
they
of
did
them will
then.
get some game time.
So yeah, the point I'm making is they have signed no one of consequence. They have signed nobody of consequence, and I guarantee you, a lot of that has to do with why am I going to go to Calgary where these guys don't even half of their team might leave in a year.
Yeah.
They got no stability whatsoever, right? Like Osterley, they signed Jordan Osterley, Dryden Hunt. Yeah, like these are not names. These are not names. I'm sorry, it's incredible.
Oof.
When you
No,
put it
they
like,
got no one
Yeah.
in free
maybe
agency.
this is a 90.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see.
I
Like,
like
but
it.
that's the thing is the players are good. That's the thing,
Yeah.
right? Like they
So
have the ability
On
to be
paper,
good,
it does,
especially if the
let's
goaltending. That's what it comes down to
let's
too.
put another caveat in there. Who led the
Yeah.
league in overtime losses last year? It was the Calgary
Jacob
Flames.
Markstrom himself,
Yes.
just Jacob Markstrom, not Calgary, just Jacob.
Pretty
Markstrom.
much. Dude, they had 17 overtime and shootout losses last year.
Yeah.
So they only missed the playoffs by, I think it was 2 points or 3 points, I believe. So, you pick up a couple extra overtime wins, you lost 17 of them. Can you go,
Yeah.
what is it, 9? And if you're at 500, what's that?
Just have 14 overtime losses instead of 17.
Yeah. 14.
Yeah.
Dude, literally go 9-8 in overtime or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
win 9 of those, half of them. I know that's a tough ask or a tall ask, but at the
Makes a
same time,
difference,
it's
though.
like it makes a big difference, right?
Okay.
It's a real tough situation Calgary Flames fans
It
in.
is time to get spicy, Brian. Let's get spicy,
My
buddy.
10, my 10 is Logan Cooley will be point per game this season.
Oh
We're always
man, that's a wow. What's Clayton Keller doing if Cooley's at 82?
100 points.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
The reason I say this is because like Arizona, like their top line just needs a little bit of extra dynamite, and that's what Cooley is. We keep on hearing Bedard, Fantilli, like in the media, but Cooley has an extra year on them from college, and he's not, I wouldn't say as technically good, but he's just as explosive in the sense that people were going to want to watch him. And I think Arizona is going to strive off that. Keller, Schmaltz, and Cooley's a strong first line, and they're going to get a lot of ice time just because of the fact that their team is a little bit weaker. But I think this is a fair 10% prediction. Do I think we'll hit it? No, because it's my 10. But do I think it's possible? Yes.
It's not out of the realm of possibility entirely. It's really not. Like if you asked me what I'd peg Cooley at right now, I would say high 60s, low 70s. Like if you told me he had 70 points, 25 goals, 45 assists, I'd say that's a really good season. That makes total sense. So 82 isn't that far off of 70. So if you believe in him, I think that's not terrible. That's a decent pick, Brian.
The caveat is the 10% is point per game. So if he plays 40 games and he gets 40 points and gets hurt,
okay.
I hit it.
I didn't read the fine print on this. I want a refund, Brian. You're cheating the system. No, that's fair though. Like I'd say like anything over 20 games, if he's point per game, that's still impressive. Like even if God forbid he gets injured after 25 games, you're still like, oh my God, can you keep that up over a full season? The intrigue would be there. So good pick, Brian. Good pick. Dave, any thoughts there, or should I hit you guys with my fire here?
No, listen, I don't have too many. I'll be honest, I don't have too many thoughts. Like at the end of the day, Arizona is going to be Arizona regardless.
What do you mean, Dave? You're Arizona's biggest fan. Come on.
Yeah, last year I'd say in my 10 that they were going to make the playoffs, and they stunk the whole year. But whatever.
You gotta make it realistic,
There was a time where we were like, oh my God,
well, you know what? The one thing I will say about Arizona, I watched I think a few games, like the Leafs games, 100%.
It's watchable.
And I watched a couple other just like games, Arizona games. They kept it competitive, and you couldn't really say that about Arizona teams in the past. And there was a couple other teams last year who did not make it competitive. Like they were bad teams. Like I don't know, Chicago, Anaheim, dude, they're a team that they're striving. It looks like they're striving to be better than what most people kind of label them as. So I will give them kudos for that. And I think having Logan Cooley in your lineup does that, right? Like he is a dynamic player. So, and you pair him alongside somebody like Clayton Keller, I think you could probably see some magic down in the desert.
Christian?
There's players on Arizona that like I'd want to watch. Like if you tell me, oh, Arizona's playing, or like you said, let's say my choices are Arizona's in a game, Islanders are in a game, and the Sharks are in a game. I'm actually choosing the Arizona game out of those
Yeah.
three. Like you can watch Keller, Schmaltz, who I like, Cooley. You can see the Veggie Milkman and Ned, who we're all a fan
Veggie
of because he
Milkman.
destroys the Leafs all the time.
Yep.
Dylan Genther, that's another guy we're forgetting too. Like that guy, he played in 33 games for them. He should be full time with Arizona this year, and he was electric in the World Juniors. So that's another guy that is worth watching. Okay, we've got here at 10%. Sidney Crosby adds a final Hart Trophy to his award case. I really like what Pittsburgh did this year. Maybe it's once again maybe the Dubas bias, but I don't know. I think I'm over that heartbreak of Dubas leaving. But just looking at that roster, I really like a lot of the moves they've made. And theme of the podcast here, I listened to a Crosby interview with Friedman and Merrick on the NHL Media Tour. Maybe I'm just a sucker for these interviews that mean nothing, but he sounds like dialed in, focused, and he was pissed off about missing the playoffs last year because from his perspective, he was always on the other side. It was our team would be wishy-washy through the year, but when it push came to shove, we got ourselves in the playoff spot. And that didn't happen last year. He was on the other end of the stick, and he was not happy about that. I think we see a focused Crosby. I think we see a Crosby that has a chip on his shoulder and one that's motivated by having a new toy to play with on the power play in Carlson. Like I really do think we're going to see the best of Crosby that we've seen in the past couple of years. This is a guy who I think had 93 points last year. If Pittsburgh's an improved defensive team, he's probably part of that engine. And man, I think if he eclipses 100 points, they get in a playoff spot, and McDavid isn't too far gone. Like Crosby's got to stay, I think, within. This is crazy to even say
20.
it. He's got to stay within like I was gonna even put the number
15.
at like 40 to make a conversation.
Oh
Like yeah, like that's crazy. But I'm gonna put my 10% on Crosby. I think we get one more just masterclass season out of this guy. A la Messi and Ronaldo, as you guys have more Messi
dance.
than Ronaldo. Yeah. You know,
it's gonna be a
so
last dance.
I think that's what we see from Crosby this year.
I like this take a lot. I think that Crosby has gone under the radar a little bit. He hasn't slowed down at all over the past, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. He hasn't been in the headlines because there's other players in the headlines, but he's just been just slightly behind those headliners. I have a lot of respect for him as a player. He's taken my team out more than once, and playing with Erik Karlsson, I think that he'll do well. Especially, that's a guy too with a chip on his shoulder. You don't want to have that chip on your shoulder. Like, I'm scared to see Crosby's dialed in and focused. And the way you made it sound, it's like, come on, not another year of this.
Like, you know that he understands that he's got like just a couple years left. Like, it's now within sight that the end is there. So he knows his time is limited. He's got to make good on it. And when Crosby knows that's that type of goal in mind, he has the type of goal in mind, he usually makes good on it.
No,
Dave,
it certainly is a 10% take because I know,
right? It's McDavid. I'm asking him to go up against the monster.
Yeah, it's McDavid. There is also like there's a lot of star talent in the league. Like, it should realistically be McDavid's to lose again. Like, if we're gonna put money on it, I'm putting my money on the favorite, right? Like, the favorite is by far and away the best player, but if McDavid maybe takes a step back, like, is he going to be at a 65, 130, whatever he had? What was it, 140 points, 135 points, something ridiculous like that?
It was like 152. It was gross. I'll pull it up. It was some ridiculous number.
Yeah. So is he going to be on that pace this year again? He could. Like, I would never.
If there's anyone, right?
Yeah, I'm never going to count him out. But
the question is if Sid can be more impactful to the Penguins than McDavid is to the Oilers, which means you're also banking. You need to pray that Draisaitl has a 70-goal season.
Yeah, that's a good point. You want to split the vote. That's a great point, man.
Yeah.
McDavid finished with 153. What a
Oh my
monster! What a
God.
goddamn monster!
Good God.
I like the prediction though. I
Yeah.
don't see it coming through, but I respect it.
Yeah. No, it is a take 100%.
Dave?
It's better than Nashville winning the President's Trophy. I'll tell you that. I've got more faith in this
There's
one.
We all
there is
learned from our
probably some
lessons
truth.
last year.
Yeah, we did. Or maybe
Dave,
I
get us
didn't.
through
I
then.
don't know. Well,
let's hear
so
it this
I don't
week.
know if I learned from my actually, I'll be honest. So this is a bit similar to, I forget who had okay, so I'll tell you what it is. So this is kind of like a two-parter. So the first part of this 10% is that Connor Bedard is going to score 40 plus this year. I said
Okay.
that would put him tied. Like if he scores 40 bang on, it will put him tied for 12th all-time in all-time rookie scoring, along with Austin Matthews.
Some guy named Austin Matthews. Yeah.
Austin Matthews, Daryl Sutter, Sylvain Turgeon, and Warren Young. No idea who the last guy is. So that I would say that prediction, like the 40 goal prediction, especially after what I wrote, I made these predictions earlier in the week. So I had not even seen Connor Bedard suit up for the Hawks just yet.
Yeah.
So I was going to say that prediction might be at a 50-50 before. I think that's probably closer to a 90. The part that weighs it down, though, is that I also said that through his impact, the Hawks are going to make the playoffs. Now, my reasoning behind this is that the Central, out of the four divisions, I would argue that the Central has the weakest bottom. Like they're very, very, very top heavy. You have Colorado and who's the other
Dallas,
team?
Minnesota.
Dallas. Those are my top two locks. But then after that, I would say 3 to 7, it's a bit more of a crapshoot than other divisions. You've got Minnesota in there. You have Nashville in there, who looks like they could potentially be an improved team, but they're still kind of rebuilding. We have the Arizona Coyotes in there. We have the Winnipeg Jets, and like who knows what the heck's going on in that camp as well. Listen, it's probably closer to like a 0% prediction, just because I had a look at the Chicago Blackhawks goaltending, and it's Peter Mrazek, and I could not tell you who their backup is if my life depended on it. All I know is last year, I think he had like an 888. The year before, he had an 858 in like 3 games or something like crazy. But there also looks to be some promise from that backup. Like he had good numbers in the minors. I don't know if he could translate it to the end.
Arvid Soderblom is who we're talking about.
Arvid Soderblom. That is
Arvid
exactly
Soderblom.
Yeah.
He went 2-10 last year.
In the end, yeah.
Yeah.
His like minors numbers aren't awful. Like they're respectable.
Oh, yeah, 919 save percentage. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Good.
So
yeah.
We'll see. That's why it's and listen, and the rest of the lineup is god awful as well. Like if you have a look at their defense, it's like Connor Murphy is their number one, and like Seth Jones, and like it's bad.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I've seen stranger things happen before.
I think that the first part is a lock. I think that you're going to see 40. I don't think the second part's going to happen. Like this is a parlay that you put knowing that you're going to lose money. Like you pick a lot,
but it's worth the excitement of watching it unfold. I think where I'm struggling to see, I'm trying to like put the dream scenario together where I see Chicago pull this off. The teams that I compare them to has to be 2016-17 Leafs, the rookie season of Matthews, and also 2017-18 Colorado, which is after they bottomed out and they got they drafted McCartan, and then he showed up in the playoffs. That was that year they made it, and they beat Calgary in the first round. That was like their first like a really good showing. Those are the two teams that I'm going to compare them to here, and they just added the phenom Bedard, so that's your Matthews comp, but they just got no one else. There's no Mitch Marner. There's no Nylander.
Yeah,
there's no Freddie Anderson.
I wouldn't say that there's no
supporting cast isn't
young
there.
supporting cast, but I mean
the Nazem Kadri is there if you want to say like Taylor Hall. The JVR and Bozak, I don't know, like Perry and Foligno are more like Matt Martin and Leo Komarov, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
basically. It's
that
it's
Question
looking
is,
it's looking a lot more like the 14-15
but with
Leafs
Bedard.
or
Or no,
sorry, now 14
15-16, but
15
with Bedard.
16 but with Bedard, yeah.
the
It's like
question
if
is,
Austin Matthews was on that team,
Yeah, basically.
which would be a really
Yeah,
tough watch.
maybe they finish 27th.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
question
But
is,
listen, we're putting all I like I said, he's gonna exceed expectations, Bedard. So like we'll see if he can carry it. He just needs someone to show up supporting cast wise. Like they have some prospects that could make the jump. Like Lucas Reichel had 15 points in 23 games last year.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. So maybe they do have like a Nylander guy there. Maybe they have some of that quality. He needs maybe just one other guy to make it out of camp, and maybe you do have that Cinderella rookie
first round
team that
exit.
can go
They-
far.
they
Yeah,
need-
well, that's dude. Brian. The first round exit against you guys was the happiest first round exit of my life. Right?
Yeah.
I know it's once again low bar, but
Right.
yeah. But they like listen. Chicago's got Frank Nazar. That's the guy they drafted. Brian should know Frank Nazar
He's
pretty
good.
well.
Good player.
Um,
Good player.
Oliver Moore. I think he's probably committed out of college, so he's probably not making his team out of camp. But they just need one of these guys to show up that maybe they didn't expect, and then I can be sold on the dream.
They need to get Mississauga Steelheads legend Ethan Del Mastro up on the big
There you go.
time.
There
Look,
you go.
realistically, he could probably kick out like I think Jared Tenorti's on that defensive
Dear
list.
God, and Zaitsev. That's a pair.
And
Zaitsev and
Zaitsev.
Tenorti's a
Yeah.
pair.
Like-
Holy crap.
Call up Del Mastro, dude. You guys
It's
need all
Get
the
Del
help you
Mastro.
can get.
Yeah.
Get
It's-
former captain Ethan Del
They have
Mastro.
definitely good
this
1%.
Korchinski guy too. Korchinski was drafted
Korchinski.
7th last year. So
Yeah.
that's a guy who can maybe make. Okay. Listen, Dave, I'm warming up to it. And
There
maybe
are
as the season goes
some-
on, it'll be a warmer.
Yeah, there are
Yeah.
they are still a work in progress. Let's make no doubt about
Yeah.
it. That's why this is my 10% and it's not like anything else.
Yeah.
Like I said, the caveat with this debate was I reasoned it out to say like, that something I pronged a two-parter.
The
And-
Blackhawks will be good for Bedard reasons, is
Yes.
basically your
Exactly.
take. Yeah.
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 Basically. But
Okay.
but are they going to be good enough to make it to the playoffs? It's a long shot, but there's a chance.
I'll look forward to watching it. Brian, we
Alrighty.
lost you. Oh no, we lost the host. He's got to direct us on what's next. Oh no.
There he is.
There
Okay.
he is. He's back.
Okay, so
We lost him again. I think-
it's okay. I think you wanted to. I think we could probably get into our breakout player of the season.
I can
So I
see
got-
Brian speak. Speak, buddy.
breakout play of the year for me is going to be Rasmus
Okay.
Sandin. He popped
that's
off
a
at
good
the end
one.
of last year. And I think that John Carlson's slowing down. I think Rasmus Sandin is going to step up, show that he's a number 1-2-ish defenseman. He'll definitely excel playing on the left side. It's kind of like we kind of got a younger, more tidy version of Orlov again, but I think he has a higher ceiling. So I think that's my play that's going to stand out this year.
He was on my short list, Brian. He was on my short list, but I'm like, I can't touch it. I can't touch it. I will say, as someone who defended that trade when it was first made, I have definitely cooled down on that front. I definitely look back at it with a little bit of resentment. It's more to do with the fact that we used the pick, and I'm not in love with the prospect than it is the trade at the time. I'm still okay with Rasmus Sandin for pick number 28 in a vacuum. Rasmus Sandin for Easton Cowan, don't like it as much. That's where I've had the cold feet. If we had turned that first round pick into like pick a name out of hat, let's say it was Tyler Toffoli.
Mhm.
I like that a lot better. I'm not as resentful, but seeing Sandin light it up in Washington, have a good. I think he was playing on the Swedish team for the World Championships. Like I do think he's gonna light it up again. Like I think he could put up 50 points for you guys and play 20 minutes a night and be your number two. Which would be I'd love to see that because he's a real good guy. I was definitely a fan of him just as a person and a player. Okay. I've got my short list here. I'm deciding who I'm gonna go with. I think I'm gonna go with Evan Bouchard. I will go with Evan Bouchard, who technically, if you wanna nitpick, that's the word, not nitpick. He kind of broke out in the playoffs last year.
He
If we
did.
really
Hitting
want to be
good
honest,
playoffs.
he was incredible in the playoffs. I'm gonna pull up his stats, but I want to say I think it was 15 playoff games, and the guy put up 17 points.
Over a point a
But
game.
listen, yeah, that's more than point per game in the playoffs, that's quite the feat. I've got it here. 12 games played in 17 points,
Wow.
4 goals and 13
Holy
assists.
moly.
So he was an assist per game player. In 28 career playoff games, he has 26 points. In the regular season, it's been a little bit of a different story. The past 2 seasons, he's played in full, 43 points, followed up by 40 last year. I think he can blow those out of the water. I think we're looking at 65 plus, probably even 70 plus, 20-goal season. Taysom Berry doesn't play on this team anymore. That spot is opened up in the top 4. Darnell Nurse has shown that he isn't maybe as good as we thought he was in terms of like well-roundedness. And Evan Bouchard's got a new father. His name is Matthias Ekholm. And that guy was dynamite with Evan Bouchard down the stretch. And I think he's the key to unlocking his overall 5-on-5 game. Because we know that Bouchard is a magician on the power play. When I watched the Oilers in the playoffs, that power play was gross. Yes, because of McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, Evander Kane. But Bouchard was a huge part of that. He was not just picking up the secondary assists. He has a cannon of a shot. He strikes fear into the eyes of not only the goalie, but the defenders, because they have to eat those shots. And he opens up space for Draisaitl and McDavid to do what they do. So I think, yes, this is a guy who's 40-point player, but I think he's taken that to the next level where we're talking about him getting some borderline Norris votes. Maybe the defensive game isn't totally there, but Matthias Ekholm is going to help him with that. He's going to be real damn good this year. So I'll go with Bouchard.
I like that pick a lot.
Very good pick.
Who else was on your short list?
I say it's a short list, but really there was a bunch of names. I'll give you some of them. I feel like this is gonna be like I don't want to take Dave's pick here, but I don't know who Dave's pick is. Someone like Byfield, like that feels like a really
He's
obvious
on my short
one.
list.
Okay, yeah, I feel like he's on a lot of people's short lists because he's underwhelmed. But I think if you were to say like Byfield or Lafreniere as your breakout guy, I've got more faith in Byfield, right?
Yeah.
So, and then another LA King, I had Kaliev. I know Brian's big on Kaliev too. I like Kaliev. So those are my other guys.
Do you have Phil Tomasino on that list?
He's absolutely on that list.
Yeah.
And so is Tommy Novak, but
Tommy Novak.
Yeah, Tommy Novak, I'm
Luke
like
Evangelista.
I left him off because I'm like, I can't have the whole damn line of this list, man. Holy. Who did you go with, Dave?
Okay, so I also had a short list. Both of your names. I had Sandin on it. I had Tom, we mentioned Byfield, we mentioned Tomasino. I had the free space and Connor Bedard as well. I was like, that's the first name on the list, of course. And I also had Matthew Nyes on the short list, but the player I'm going to be going with is another Leaf potential breakout in Joseph Wall. We got to see
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
We got to see glimpses of Wall last year, the year before as well, but last year was like his kind of starting to break out season. And I think he proved himself to be a trustworthy backup. This is a guy who, I wouldn't put all my eggs. I wouldn't think the Leafs would put all their eggs into his basket right away. But as playing second fiddle, hopefully this season to Ilya Samsonov, staying healthy. Hopefully both of them stay healthy, but Joseph Wall might need to come up big in relief because Samsonov is not the healthiest of goaltenders. I think that there is a potential opening down the stretch in this season where Joseph Wall is going to have to come and play pretty big minutes. So I think for that reason alone, we are potentially seeing the new face of Toronto Maple Leaf goaltending, and it's going to start this season with a very good Joseph Wall performance.
I like that one a lot. Yeah, I do like it a lot. Sammy played 42 games last year, like you said, because of injury. The rest of the games were split between Murray and Wall. Um, Also, if you want to
Well,
throw
I
in like
wasn't
Jet
like
Alexander and
it was like
yeah, what's up?
what 8? I think Murray only played like 10, so you had to.
Wall had 7. I
Wall
would
had
guess
7,
Murray had probably like
like 18.
yeah, something like that. Something like that. But I think this year, if you're projecting, yeah, he played in 26, so that's actually more than
Oh,
even I thought. Yeah. So if we're projecting this season, I think Sammy tops out at 50, honestly. Like I think Wall could even be more than just a quote unquote backup. Like I think we could be looking at him as 1B,
1B.
right? I
Yeah.
think 30 to 35 games is totally within the realm of possibility. And if he gives you anything close to the quality he did last year, we're really happy with that. And like you said, I think you'd be willing to make that bet on him going into the summer when Samsonov is a free agent. You might not want to pay that big price tag when you've got Joseph Wall right there for you to resign. I think it's probably up. I don't even know.
I think he's an
Um,
RFA.
yeah, okay. So it's RFA negotiations. That the point is you have someone internally as an option. So you know what? No, he's got another year still too.
No,
So there you
so
go. 750K for a guy for 2 more years potentially who could give you maybe 1B quality is stellar. And I think that would definitely qualify as breakout quality for sure.
Solid pick, Dave. Okay, we're just gonna go on another quick break. Be right back. Okay, we're back from our break. Off-season winners. I'll go first. I didn't know who to pick with this one. This one took me a bit of time. I couldn't pick between Dallas and Carolina, but I ultimately chose to go with Carolina just because of the fact that I think that they're going to get the most. They'll get more out of Bunting and Orlov than Dallas will get out of Duchesne. I am
fair.
scared of this team. This team is going to run the division, and they potentially might just run the playoffs. Oh my God, Orlov is going to have a breakout season because he's going to be playing against bottom 6 guys, and Bunting is just going to he might hit less points, but he'll definitely show that he's a more of an impact player with Carolina than he did past season, I guess.
Yeah,
They
that's
definitely got
a
a lot better.
it's a very good pick.
They were already like class of the league last year. Maybe not class of the league, but in that upper echelon for sure. The fact they had Bunting and Orlov on like such reasonable deals, and even quietly like D'Angelo at like 1.5. He's got his warts personality wise and
Even
distractions, but
defensively wise.
yeah, defensively for sure. But we did see in his brief time in Carolina before that Rod the Bod seems to be the Tony D'Angelo whisperer. So and
Yeah.
they re-signed both of their goalies. I think both of them at a cheaper deal than before. Like that's tidy business in Carolina. It's tough to argue that Carolina isn't a winner. Yeah, once again, I did have a little bit of a short list here. I think I'm just going to stick with what I've been preaching. Let's go with Pittsburgh. They are definitive winners in my mind. They added a lot of players that I just like individually, whether it's Riley Smith, who I was banging the drum on as soon as I heard he was potentially available, and they got him at such a reasonable price. I think it was a 3rd-round pick. They got him. He's going to slot into their top 6. He's coming off of a 56-point season, 26 goals, won the Stanley Cup. Pretty good player. Other than that, Noah Chari is a guy that a lot of Leaf fans fell in love with in his brief time in Toronto. Hard-nosed guy. We were comfortable with him on a 3rd line, let alone a 4th line. And he just does a lot of the little things really, really well. And he's got a sneaky shot. Sneaky shot. Lars Eller as a 4th line center, Brian's got to be a fan of that. Well, maybe not a fan of him on Pittsburgh, but I know, yeah, that's true. Brian, you soured on him this year. You did. You're like,
This year
good
is
riddance.
so bad. This year is
Yeah,
so bad.
you're not
But you
wrong.
know, sheltered minutes, 4th line, playing behind Sid, Malkin, Carter, Chari.
Yeah.
It's not bad. Like he's
Yeah.
like their 5th-ish option down the middle if they need to be. So yeah.
They've
fill
got
in.
Jake Gensel, who's supposed to only miss like 5 games. They thought it might have been
Miracle.
yeah, because he was supposed to be out 3 months from when he was injured, but that's a really underrated guy. He had 73 points last year. Like he's almost point per game. People forget about him a lot. And then the defense. It's a totally rebuilt defense in my mind, right? Petrie gone. Carlson in. And really, I look at it, there's 5 defensemen who I trust, who I'm like, I'm fine with them on an NHL blue line. Ryan Graves, A little bit expensive
Solid.
deal wise, but he's a guy who was very steady for the Devils and he plays 20 minutes a night. Erik Karlsson, we already talked about. Maybe he's not a 100-point player again, but if he's a 75 to point per game player, that is a absolute win for Pittsburgh. Marcus Pettersson, very underrated guy. He might be the guy who ends up playing with Karlsson, get the Swedish connection going, and you end up having someone defensively responsible with him. He's underrated. Chris Letang, he's going to have less of a workload on his body. He played 24-51 last year every night. That's almost 25 minutes a night. That's insane for Chris Letang, who's 36 years old and has suffered 2 strokes. That's incredible. And then Pierre-Olivier Joseph is a 24-year-old left-handed defenseman, 21 points in 75 games. There's promise there, and he's not going to be asked to be exposed in the top 4 role. And Chad Ruhwedel, who sucks. But 5 really good guys. Goaltending is maybe where things are wishy-washy. Depends on your opinion of Jari. But I think he's good enough. He's good enough, and I like Pittsburgh a lot. I think they're going to get one of the 3 divisional spots in the Metro. And I think if I had to pick a team they kick out, it's the Rangers.
New York.
Yeah. I guess
that's a solid pick just because of the fact that they did revamp their whole roster.
Mhm.
All right, Dave, hit us with your team.
I guess we're gonna sweep the Metro Division in the winners because my winner is the New Jersey Devils. I think their offseason could potentially have put them on the precipice of becoming the next modern NHL dynasty. You know, you extend Jesper Bratt and Timo Meier to have fair to good value deals. I would say they are potentially good to great value deals. Like I think
I agree.
I think their floor is like good value. You also extend Holla for I believe it was 3 years. As a good little depth piece.
Totally fine. I think that's a 3 seed. Totally fine.
Exactly. And you also get Tyler Toffoli from Calgary for pennies on the dollar. You also cut Damon Severson and Mackenzie Blackwood loose in exchange for Luke Hughes and underrated story of last playoffs, Akira Schmid. They're putting their faith in the young kid, and I think they have good reason to do it. I think he is going to take he's another one who could have also gotten a breakout player of the year,
Yeah.
but he's know, there's so many options that you could have went with that he's potentially one of the biggest underrated options. I think the New Jersey Devils are on their way to becoming the cream of the crop in the NHL.
I think definitely Brian agrees because he's just Jack Hughes' #1 fan. I also agree. Literally the only complaint I can think of with New Jersey is I feel like there may be one defenseman short. Just on their depth chart right now, they have Kevin Ball in a top 4 role. Mind you, for some reason they have Siegenthaler in the 3rd pair. Swap that around, it's a different story. I feel like the key from them going from great, because I think we think they're going to be great, but maybe like unstoppable, is if Nemec also makes the team. If you have Luke Hughes and Nemec make this team, plus Hamilton, plus Marino, plus Siegenthaler, and then you just need one other guy to be
just
steady,
literally
whether it's
warm body,
Chad Ruhwedel style, Kevin Ball, or
could be Kevin Ball.
One of you. Yeah, one of you guys. I like Colin Miller a lot, honestly, too. I've always wanted him as a Leaf. And he played a full season with Dallas. Like, I like him a lot. I think he could be their 6th. It's a gross team. It is very gross. I don't like looking at how good that roster is, honestly.
Yeah.
No, I like that.
Brian, we got you there?
No.
We kind of sort of have Brian.
I like that pick a lot. Like they don't have a bad player on the roster, period, and they have players coming up too. Like it's ridiculous how good that team is. Okay, biggest loser of the offseason. I had Florida on here, but on my short list, but I took them out because of the fact that at least they tried something, and you can't really. Okay, am I good?
Yeah. Go, Brian. Go.
Am I good?
You're good.
I had Florida. I have Florida, but I decided to swap it out for Calgary. The reason I took Florida was because at least they tried to do stuff. Calgary, blank chessboard. They didn't do anything. They didn't move a pawn. They didn't lose anything either. But what that means is that they're not really showing direction. And I think that's the biggest L you can take, is just not showing a sense of movement.
For sure.
I think it's a very, very good
And
point.
yeah, that's why Calgary is my biggest loser this offseason.
Calgary and Florida were on my short list. I'm gonna go with Boston, who we did touch on earlier. And this is still with the caveat that I still have them in a playoff spot. So as much as I'm about to talk about how much they've lost, they're still a good team. They're still a good team. But just running it down, like Bergeron, Krejci, both lost to retirement. Taylor Hall had to be traded for salary cap reasons. You lost Hathaway. You lost Bertuzzi. You lost Orlov. Every single one of those guys are players that I think all three of us would take on our team any day of the week. To lose that many guys is really tough to replace. And looking at the replacements, you have Patrick Brown as your fourth line center. You have AJ Greer as your fourth line left winger. Lucic, are we really that excited about the return of Lucic to Boston? I don't know about performance-wise. I'm sure they are, and like locker room-wise, the vibes. Good for the vibes, definitely. JVR, Morgan Geekie, Jacob Lauko as your third line. They have some lottery tickets here. Some absolute lottery tickets. Trent Frederick is in their top 6 right now. I like Trent Frederick. I don't want him in my top 6. I don't. It's tough. The defense is still really, really solid. That's when you're betting on if you're Boston. Grzelcyk, McAvoy, Lindholm, Carlo. Forward Shattenkirk is whatever, but it is what it is. And then the goaltending. The goaltending is
solid.
Is the true standout here. Omar and Swayman. Still, I think you'd regard them as the best duo in the league, especially just from a regular season standpoint. We know it didn't go so well in the playoffs, but I've got total faith in those guys to split the games again and have like a 9.25 save percentage each. So listen, I'm down on Boston. I think they're losers, not necessarily much of their own fault, but they didn't do their best that I think they could have with replacing a lot of those high-end pieces they lost.
For sure.
That's nuts.
Suffering from success, Boston, I think. When you remain at the top for so long, it kind of, anytime you're forced to take a step back, it's always a tough look. But I still think, I don't know how you still don't count that team out. You know what I mean? We've counted them out so many times. It felt like we were at in a boxing ring. You know what I mean?
This season.
Yeah.
It felt like we were watching a Logan Paul boxing match. That's how many times we counted them out. But I still think they're, they're taking how if you are at the top of anything, the only way, the only direction you could go is down. So unfortunately it looks like Boston, but I would agree though, Christian, the moves that they made also weren't smart. They might not be smart in hindsight as well.
They could have made better bets to replace their who they lost, the talent they lost.
Maybe their bets do hit. That's always been something something Boston's been done.
Players become Bruins when they put on that jersey.
Exactly.
I'm not looking forward to having to see JVR on that jersey.
No, not
That's
at all.
Gonna be weird.
I know he's scoring. I know he's scoring a goal against us this year. You could almost book it down.
Who's your biggest loser?
My biggest loser, staying in the Metro, the New York Islanders. The New York Islanders. Okay, signed Ilya Sorokin. Nice 8-year deal. Solid. But apart from that,
and I think it was an expensive deal. Which
I think it's 64 mil over 8 years, which is pretty good. I think it's pretty good value regardless. But where they lose a lot of points for me, they didn't make. I think they were the ones that if I'm not mistaken, they only made 2 free agent signings. It's Carson Coleman and another player. I have no idea who. So
Okay.
they didn't really add to their team, to a team that, I think I said last year that they were going to make into the playoffs, and they have a team that is defensively sound. Like they're not offensive team by any stretch, but you also need to score goals if you want to win in this league. And they're not really providing Bo Horvat or Matt Barzal with anything to really work with. That said, they signed guys like Pierre Engvall and Scott Mayfield for long-term deals, set both at 7 years apiece. Like, I guess
34-year-old Pierre Engvall is going to be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Like, listen, I have a love-hate relationship with Pierre Engvall. I thought he had some very good pieces. I also thought he was lacking in other places. He is a good support option. But to 7 years, that's, I guess to get the cap down, but
he's too up and down to make that type of commitment. He's way too up and down to put that much faith into Pierre Engvall.
Yeah, that's signing both of those, those two guys to long-term deals are Lou Lamoriello moves if I've ever seen them.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
I like the Mayfield one more, even though he's older. That was the guy we were talking about.
I do like the Mayfield one a bit more, but it's like, if we're gonna rank it on a 1 to 100 scale of how much I like it, if Pierre Engvall's at a 5%, I like the Mayfield one at a 10%, basically, right? So it's an improvement, but it's not that big of an improvement. They also signed very underratedly. They signed Semyon Varlamov to a midterm extension. This is a 35-year-old goaltender who in the past, I believe, has had some injury histories. Yeah.
Do you have the contract terms there? Oh my God.
I forget
I did not realize. I thought it was a 1-year deal, man.
No, it's 4 years. 4 years. I want to say it's like $4 million, I think, as well.
Oh my Lord. I'll pull it up.
That could potentially be a move this season that might not blow up in their face, but it might blow up in their face a lot quicker than a lot of people would.
Deal.
Yeah.
2.75 by 4. That's still a lot though. Like
that's
going to be 2.75 Semyon Varlamov at 38 and 39 for a guy who has had some injuries in the past as well.
Maybe he's a Robidas Island candidate, and in that case, you make it disappear. Maybe that's
if anybody's going to make that money disappear,
you might make more than the contract disappear. You might make the actual person disappear.
Yeah.
Dave, I actually didn't think that the Islanders were that bad until you.
Thanks.
They just did nothing. Yeah. Until you, Dave. The Islanders were bad until you existed, and then once you existed, Dave, it was over.
I did a 360 turn on the Islanders in the span of 12 months. I think last year I was like, man. Well, I did get it right that the Islanders were gonna make this is to say that I still think the Islanders might have a chance of making it into another wild card position, but
they're losers this offseason though.
Yeah, they just didn't improve anywhere though.
There's a problem when I'm looking at their 10 most recent signings, and Nikita Soshnikov is on this list. That's how little they've signed players. They just don't sign players.
They don't.
Okay, boys. Man. Closing thoughts?
This was fun, guys. This was cathartic. It was good. This was therapeutic. Talk some hockey.
Well needed.
All I need is just a little bit more cold weather, some more orange leaves on the floor, man, and then you'll smell hockey season around the corner. Some Tim Hortons hockey cards, maybe. Bring those back to.
It's coming back soon, hopefully.
Yeah, there's no Tim's in my area.
Really? What?
There's no Tim's and McDonald's in walking distance of my house.
Oh, are you kidding me?
I haven't had fast food in 3 weeks.
Oof.
Wow, man. I mean, it's good. You just gotta get used to not having fast food, right?
That's kind of weird that there's no Tim's walking distance, because literally anywhere in Canada, there's Tim's walking distance from everywhere. It's not even I don't even want to be hyperbolic about it. Anywhere where there's okay, granted, you go far, in Ontario especially, you go a bit up north, it's not like that. But anywhere where there is some dense population, there's a population density,
you'd
There's a
expect
lot
it
of
isn't.
Tims. Yeah, 100%. It's kind of
It's a lot
crazy.
of like local businesses. Like, and one thing
You
that
know
was
what?
super
That's
weird,
good.
we
That
went
is
half
good.
an
Yeah.
hour west, like to go camping, and I was in another time zone. I was technically central time zone. It was
Oh
so
my
weird.
God.
But
That's very weird.
shout out to Fubo, shout out to Razor, shout out to NHLShop.ca. On Fubo, you can watch the Canadian women's national team. We have a high school colleague named Catherine, and she's actually making a petition to, sign it to support the Canadian women's national team. They play important qualifiers, I believe, on the 22nd and the 26th against Jamaica, in which they are fighting for spots to compete in the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. If Canada's able to win these matches and qualify for these Olympic Games, it may be the last time Catherine Sinclair will be competing in a Canadian shirt at the Olympic Games before she retires. So, shout out to Catherine. Make sure to sign the petition. All the links are in the bio. Thank you again for listening. We'll be back next week and every week after that until the end of the season.
Yep.
This was fun, guys. Very fun. Let's do it again. Okay.
Let's do it every week. Come back every week. All right.